Welcome to the Drew segment of our podcast special episode today, where we give pre-concert thoughts, just thoughts, pre-concert thoughts about our upcoming concert, Friday, May 29th, which will be our seasonal retrospective, and it's really exciting. Drew, there's a substantial amount of music on this program written by you. Much of it we've talked about before, but maybe in your mind, what does this concert represent for you? Or why does it feel particularly special, or why should people come?
Well, I think this concert's fun for a couple reasons. Not just because my music is on this concert, but we gave it a title and a concept and a theme, and the title is Crossroads, and there's sort of a story arc about appreciating unexpected intersections in our lives. And so we tell actually the story of how you started Sound of Ages and how you and I met a couple years into your Sound of Ages project, and a bunch of the unexpected interesting things that have happened as a result. And so I think that one reason people should come is because it's going to tell a great story and it'll be really interesting. And a second reason is that I think that the programming reflects a pretty good vantage point into your interests and my interests. And I think that's kind of where we really connected, was around this sort of shared fascination for both the absolute beauty of the human voice, but also certain kinds of music that really light us up. And so what does that mean? Well, we have a shared appreciation for early music, Renaissance stuff, but then also contemporary music that takes some cues from early music in terms of its attention to line and polyphony. And I think there's A+ repertoire on this concert, despite my pieces that are that'll be worth hearing because of those qualities that sort of caused us to start collaborating in the first place. There we go. 2 reasons to come. Oh, also, it's a beautiful Friday night in Salt Lake City in a gorgeous church where the music just sort of blooms and echoes forever, and that's its own reward too.
Yeah, it's like a musical sound bath. It's a little bit less abstract than a sound bath, but it's in that world, and it'll be very exciting. Well, one reason why I think it's really special and why I'm really excited, because I feel like we've told our story in different snippets on different platforms in different areas. Like on this podcast, we tell a little bit of that story in the liner notes of our first album, First Light. We've told our story in snippets in previous concerts, but it'll be cool to go through kind of the whole timeline of this is our journey, this is where we started, and this is where we're going. This is what we aim. This is our vision for the future. And, that's one of there's a really fantastic book. I just turned to my library here. Let's see.
It's book time with Dr. Kavanaugh.
Book. Open up your book. Okay. I'm not quick enough, because then I would say something like, if you open up to the page and have a look, you'll see that it's book time. I think this should be a segment. This should be a segment every time. So there's a really great book called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, who is one of my heroes. And in this book, he talks about organizations, companies, individuals who are trying to beat other people, or level up each other, beat other companies or be the best at this. Often they find themselves playing the finite game And when they get there, even if they do win, then the game is over. And it's like they say in Sandlot, insert expletive here, dang it, Smalls, now we can't play no more. You know, like that's, and it's like, even if you win, that's the way I feel after every hockey season. Even the 3 times my teams won the championship, I'm in the locker room after, and I'm pretty bummed because the next season doesn't start for like a month. And now we can't play no more. And so organizations that play the infinite game are people who try to stay in the game as long as possible. And when I first read this book and heard that concept, it was really profound to me. One of the things he talks about is having a just cause. People who play the infinite game have a just cause. And these are the 5 characteristics of a just cause that we try to create.
Tell us, Cam, what are they?
It needs to be for something, not against something. In the affirmative, optimistic, inclusive, open to all who would like to contribute, service-oriented for the primary benefit of others, resilient, able to endure political, technological, and cultural change, and idealistic, big, bold, and ultimately unachievable. And so for me, Sound of Ages of we open human hearts and forge genuine human connection through the timeless power of the voice. We try in our conversations, me and Drew and our singers, and we've tried to make sure that everything we do is fulfilling that, and that just cause fits those 5 criteria all the time. And we've never been able to tell like the story of like, this is our vision, this is our just cause, the vision for the future. And I think it's really exciting to me to be able to do that and to show that it's not just like, it's not one of those campaigns of like, help us keep doing what we love to do. It's like, no, we really think this is what society needs. And we're also not telling you what you need. You know, it's a paradox of balancing that of, we're not going to tell you what you need, then give it to you. We think this is going to help people. Join us if you wish. And telling that story through narrative and through music, very specific pieces of music that speak to me that way, speak to you that way, speak to our singers that way, is really exciting, actually. So that's why I'm excited.
Well, I think there's an element of trust in it because I learned a lot from my uncle who just passed away. He's a farmer. And I remember somebody saying once that farmers grow crops. And he said, well, kind of. He said, farmers take care of soil and soil grows the crops. And that was a really interesting insight because there's a line from a Wendell Berry poem called Whatever is Foreseen in Joy. Well, that's the first line of the poem. And it says that the field is tilled and left to grace that we may reap. Great work is done while we're asleep. And there's this element of trust where you take care of the soil. And I think it's interesting that the word culture literally comes from the Latin word for soil, right? We're taking care of the soil. And then you trust that if you do your job taking care of the soil, that the soil does the work of growing.
Does the work.
And that happens effectively while we sleep. That's an act of grace. There's nothing that we can do to cause the soil to do its job, but we can be good caretakers. And I think that when we trust that pulling people towards the transcendentals, truth, beauty, and goodness, you pull people towards that, and then you trust that the cosmos through the transcendentals will do its own talking, and will, if we can pull people towards what is good, and we trust that their hearts will open, and that's part of being good stewards for the soil. I think that that's part of what we are called to do, just as moral agents in a moral universe. And I think if we're playing the long game, that is playing the long game. You constantly stewardship is an ongoing calling. You don't ever get to check the box like, well, I did stewardship. What's next? It's like, no, that's literally what you're supposed to do with all of the days that you have been allotted. And if you are a good steward, what you're doing is sustaining this culture so that it will keep growing what needs to grow for whoever gets to take care of it after you do. I would go so far as to say that, an example of that would be governmental structures that protect political rivals rather than punish them, because if you protect your rivals, paradoxically, what you get to do is have the next season and the season playing after that. That's the infinite game. And so, when I was being trained as a composer, particularly in a couple pivotal moments, I started seeing myself as a little teeny tiny link, a really unimportant link, but in a long chain. And like, if I do my job well, I get to add one tiny link to the chain. What else is in that chain? Where does it come from? And I think that's what ties back to this total fascination with early music, because our musical, artistic, cultural ancestors noticed, I think, a lot of really primal foundational things about, what it is to be alive as a human being, what it is to experience beauty, truth, and goodness. And they sort of encode those things in art. Art lives at that boundary region between each of our senses and the world that we inhabit. And one of the things I think is really funny about conversations about art right now is about AI and art. And it's sort of a dumb red herring, I think, because art is not the object that's created. It's not the painting. It's not the piece of music that sits on a piece of paper. And I really don't care if somebody's large language model can like vomit something that resembles a painting. Art is the verb. Art is the process of work and suffering and responding to being alive it may result in an object that's sort of encoded, but art is the process. It's a humane process. And our ancestors, we can learn so much about ourselves from our ancestors who were struggling at the boundary, the sensory boundary between their sight and hearing and feeling, inhabiting the world, because we're literally the same. It doesn't matter that it's hundreds of years later, we're still trying to figure out how do you be a person in the world that exists. And what I love about the programming that we're going to hear on Friday night is that we're at the level of text, we're talking about those kind of themes. At the level of harmony, we're talking about that kind of stuff. At the level of polyphony and sort of like the collaboration of many voices, we're talking about those same things. At the level of creating an ensemble sound that blooms and fills a church, we're talking about the same stuff. And that is the timeless thread.
Yeah. And it's like, that's why I love the interdependence of counterpoint, because it really is, I feel like society and socialness, for lack of a better word, is mirrored in every level of biology and nature and cosmos. When you find, it's kind of like you're always pursuing truth. Maybe we never quite get there. And, as Nick Saban said, famous football coach, Alabama, the minute you feel like you've arrived, that's when you start to degrade. It's like, ooh, yeah, it's true.
I was at a visual arts conference with my son in Atlanta just recently, and there was a guy that was talking about this, and he very famous portrait artist, and he was talking about this false sense of arrival. And he said that when the artist thinks they've arrived, the paintings get worse and the artist's signature gets bigger and bigger.
Oh, dude, so true, dude. Man, that's really profound though, right? So I feel like we're constantly pursuing this idea of like truth somewhere, but I feel like you find nuggets of it in nature, biology, and it's mirrored. So like the interdependence of counterpoint is one of those evidences of, to me, where it's like, that alto line has very unique character. And it also seamlessly fits in and works with the society around it. It hasn't completely abandoned itself. And it's not all about the group, but it also isn't calling all attention to itself, being all about the self. And it is equal parts both somehow. And so I think that
it's the soprano line that's always calling attention to itself, though, right?
Exactly. And the tenor part that sometimes wanders off and gets lost. We have to pull him back to the fold, and the bass line that kind of sounds like a hive of bees or a bunch of lawnmowers. You have a gaggle of geese and a murder of crows, and what is a group of lawnmowers called?
A stampede.
A stampede of lawnmowers occasionally is the bass section. Bless their little hearts, you know. Just can't quite find it. Edward, as one of those bass baritones, I'm proud to be a lawnmower. But I feel like it's, like the first thing, one of the first pieces in the program is Dufay's Nuper Rosarum Flores. And it's like, not only are they trying to experience the boundaries of what it is to be human, but they're also, in a much more practical sense, trying to figure out how sound works. Yeah. They're still figuring this thing out of like, how do we choreograph noises to work together? How do we then encode that somehow to make a record of it so people can duplicate that time-bound artistic experience again in the future?
Oh, yeah.
And like, if you think about it, that is so complex and not obvious. And so to hear this idea of, it's the same to me as the Duomo itself. So in Florence, you have the Duomo, or the Cathedral Santa Maria. I think that's what it's called. And then it's the main cathedral in Florence. And this piece was written for the dedication of that church. And there's all kinds of myths surrounding it, that it was rhythmically, mathematically proportionate to the building itself, which is not really true. But proportions and mathematical equations and balance and space and scale were really important to composers of this time. And that edifice is such a breathtaking experience. It's kind of musically, this is the exact equivalent in my mind. And you're hearing them make sense of the time part of music, where it's like, if you stretch it out, it feels like this. If you speed it up, you can speed it up by this proportion and it feels like this. And then, you know what I mean? So it's really cool and this piece, in addition, is the piece that sparked my inspiration to start Sound of Ages in the first place.
This is the origin
story more in depth,
yeah.
But this piece is the origin for for Sound of Ages, for my own love and depth and journey with early music, and for Renaissance and Western music as a whole. It just feels really like the perfect piece to start the program with. So, well, if
you're going to pick like an origin story, I think this is, if you're going to choose a Genesis or something, this is about as good as you can choose, because when I think about our cultural ancestors, one of the things that our early ancestors would have been certain of is that stone is really heavy and its place is on the ground. Right.
Yeah.
And then you get into the Gothic era.
Yeah. Maybe they can live in the sky.
Well, I mean, at some point you look at these incredible arches and these buttressed structures that are just ascending into heaven, and it must have seemed like the most incredible magic trick of all to take these things that were obviously heavy and have them floating in the air.
Yeah.
And I think that same wonder and magic is, whether it's, a mathematical, architectural, copy or not,
right,
in the music, we get this same sort of like ascendancy towards heaven, just this incredible resonance, spiraling. Yeah. This sensation of filling up a dome that's just going to lift our attention heavenward.
Yeah. The moral act of attention. Yeah. It's really cool. And with these longer drone notes that feel like the foundation stones underneath it, right? It's to me, it's simultaneously grounding and spiraling upwards, because those long cantus firmus notes just ground you. It's so in fifths, right? So it's like, and you'll hear it in the guitar, these rock and roll power chords, which on ancient trombones known as sackbuts, it would have been just as bright and buzzy.
Yeah.
And it would have felt like modern rock and roll in a lot of ways. And it just feels earthy, mixed with that spirally heavenward gaze. It's very, very fun to start with that and use that to kind of reminisce.
Yeah. And so from there, we go into some music by Monteverdi. And then
Monteverdi, we don't need to go too much into each of those pieces, but Monteverdi is significant because he really takes music a big leap forward into the text. Now is really taking a front seat, and the music is kind of subservient to the text. All the musical devices are to serve to tell the story more rhetorically and declamatorily. And so you hear dove, dove, this where is thy faith? Where is the faith that you pledged so much to me? And all this stuff of, I want to die. Would you let die? This is very dramatic, but the music is now telling the story of the text, right? And so Monteverdi really takes us, this is a bold statement, I would say nearly primarily responsible for taking us into what is musically known as the Baroque era through musical devices and through this idea that text is now telling the story.
Yeah.
And it's pretty remarkable to hear his, that music. And so in a lot of ways, I feel like that's what every composer tries to do. They look to the past and they try to say something new by taking elements of the past and inventing new things at the same time. And Monteverdi is one of the first that, that you learn about in music history, and that really has a fantastic grab you by the lapels, something to say with the music and the text. So it's really exciting to kind of explore his music. Which leads us directly into a short set showing that we don't do just Renaissance music. We like all of it, because it's all part of the link in the chain, like Drew said, where each of these composers has a very significant spot in the chain, and the chain turns into chain mail and goes all over in all kinds of directions, which is great. And every piece, like there is a piece, that everyone holds. So Anton Bruckner's Locus Iste, which is going to feel really significant in that space. It's kind of a church dedication piece. And so it's all about structure again, and being in St. Ambrose is going to be really beautiful, and hearing that in that space will be remarkable. And then a piece by Will Todd. This is much more modern and jazzy. And then Bob Chilcott, The Runner, which is a really fun piece. Text by Walt Whitman. It goes through running, and it will feel like you're running with us. So catch your breath and get ready to run on that piece. So, and that quickly leads us to our first, which we've talked about before, but our first guitar, Andrew Maxfield Sound of Ages collaboration piece. We get to tell the story of how Drew and I first met, or the start of our collaboration, we kind of relive that moment and perform Darkness Starts.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear this one live again. Just in March of this year, when we premiered the Gigantor piece, Stations of the Cross, it's a full hour of 6-part vocal polyphony with electric guitar. And people remark on that combination pretty frequently. And the funniest thing about it, I love the combination, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface of all of the possibilities. It's endlessly interesting to me. And the funny thing about it is it was a total accident. When it first started, we just happened to be on a vocal music concert that was paired with guitar. And so I thought, well, I wonder what happens if we put these things together. And so this will be great to pull that out and hear it in context.
Yeah, and in a lot of the ways represents the theme of the whole concert, right? Of these happy accidents and where will life lead you and what doors open where. So it's very, very cool. And then after a little bit, we'll get to hear some more of a couple of movements of Stations, which will be really great. And a chance to hear those maybe out of context is actually going to be really nice, I think, in the best way. It won't feel as like heavy and serious as listening to the whole of Stations, which is part of the point, is that it should be that way. Yeah. But we'll just get to explore some of that piece in an abstract setting before then we hear the next sort of big idea behind the Sound of Ages, Andrew Maxfield guitar collaboration, which is reimagining pieces from the past, which this piece, the next piece, If Ye Love Me Reimagined, just came out on our album last Friday on Wind, Water, Stone. It's the final piece on that album. And in a lot of ways, like every single way, at every single level, both philosophically and pragmatically, musically, textually, whatever, represents so much of what we believe in, of connecting to our ancestors, musical ancestors, connecting to the past to find a way to the future, these crossroads together, this third space between a lot of things, this guitar modern sensibility with ancient voice leading, and all of that is so perfectly represented in this piece. It's really one of my faves.
That glad you like it, because glad you like it, Cam, because this was a funny accident too. We were working on a concert of some other kind, I don't remember what, last year, and I sat down fully with the intention, I think we were going to try to poke at a different Dufay piece, the Ave Maristella.
We were.
Yeah.
We were going to reimagine a Dufay piece with guitar and whatever else, and it was for the album and for another concert. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so I didn't ever write that piece, because what happened on accident was I sat down on a Sunday afternoon and I had the Tallis motet, If You Love Me, which is like top 40. It's so everybody
of all time,
right? Yeah. Everybody knows that piece
forever,
and it's literally a perfect piece. And ordinarily I would be very cautious to mess with something that's perfect, but for whatever reason I had that piece kind of in the back corner of my mind. And I sang it in a chorale setting. I'm sure everybody has had experience of singing that piece, and it was just in the back corner of my mind. And I sat down, ironically, at the piano. I write a lot of guitar music at the piano, which doesn't always make sense, but I sat down at the piano and I was like,
as one does.
This piece is so interesting, because the way that Tallis said it sounds one way, but I'm really interested in the word if, because the entire text teeter-totters on this conditional if if you love me, keep my commandments. Yeah. And I just wanted to explore the word if.
And then
for all
by
sorts
accident,
of reasons.
I sat down to write a Dufay piece or to rearrange a Dufay piece, and just dang it, I accidentally wrote this perfect piece reimagining Talus's "If You Love Me." I hate when that happens, Drew. It happens to me all the time, where I just sit down and accidentally make something perfect. Must be nice.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not going to claim anything about it's perfect, but what I will say is that I think I've said this before, that I think of a lot of my pieces as what I call appreciations. It's like when I encounter something that I really love, or that just levels me. Maybe it's a book or an idea or a question or a poem or a conversation or a mentor or something. When something hits me hard in the right way, I tend to try to express my appreciation. Like I try to respond to it. And that response comes usually in the form of music. Sometimes I write other things, poetry, essays, whatever, but frequently in music. And this was really just an appreciation of Talus. And so I try to live by the Hippocratic oath, do no harm.
Right.
All I can say is I tried.
Well, you didn't in this one. It's going to be a centerpiece for sure. So then as we get to hear a few more pieces that as we go, like Song for Athene is another big one that many people will have heard before. This was commissioned by by England for John Tavener to write for Princess Diana's funeral. And set by, again, Sir John Tavener. It's one of the greatest. I just love this piece. Most people do love this piece, and you'll hear him switch this very simple melody between major and minor. Setting of this Shakespeare text is beautiful. Come enjoy rewards and crowns I have prepared for you. At the end, and the guitar will play that long. It's just a single note that normally the basses sing, a single F, the whole piece, but it's played by the guitar, and we do it in our own way with more limited voicing, but we still do it, and it's cool to do it in that setting, because usually it's by larger choruses, right? And you hear this big, gigantic sound, but it's cool to hear a smaller ensemble do it and really hero themselves into those notes at the end. It just gives it a different color, and so it's really exciting. We've done that piece
in a couple different places, but I remember it specifically from the Springville Museum of Art last November when we did our first Voices in Motion concert, where the audience followed the singers through the various rooms in the various gallery rooms in the museum. And the Sound of Ages singers are just fabulous to begin with. And when they let loose, loose on the Hallelujah, I'm like, I am here. It's
pretty awesome.
Just for that passage. And it's going to sound so good in St. Ambrose.
In St. Ambrose.
I can't wait for Friday night, literally just for the Hallelujahs.
Seriously though, and I was like, we can't do this concert and not do that piece. Like it's not even like, I don't know. We can't not do it. And then we end with some really beautiful audience faves, kind of, and a little bit pieces that are a little bit less. I don't know how to say it per se. It's a little bit more like it demands less, I guess, intellectually of the audience, and the audience can just bask in these last pieces and just let it happen to them,
it's like a perfect
gift to the audience. Last set,
it's like a perfect sorbet or like a nice dessert or something.
Little dessert, right?
Yeah.
And so we're really excited to share this program with you, and hope some of this helps and get inside. We want to invite you as often and as much as possible into the ensemble and into the behind the scenes and why this piece is this way, etc., because we want you to feel and be in real way fully connected to us during the performance and after, that we're this giant group with our hearts kind of forged together, right? So
Cam, I think you've convinced me. I've decided to come.
Oh, dude, I was really worried, because then I would have to say stuff and I would have to explain why you weren't there. Everyone's like, wait, why didn't your composer come? He doesn't really like us very much. He just writes for us.
That standoffish guy.
But if Drew comes, then you can know and be rest assured that there is something for everybody.
Even me.
Even Drew. I'll even come.
Wow. That is a vote of confidence. All right. Well, I will see you there.
Yes. Friday, 7:30 p.m., St. Ambrose Church, Salt Lake City.